welcome back to the Power and Lifting Podcast. I'm your host, Solana Lewis. Today, me and Kristen, we dive into how we kind of choose our frequency for our athletes when it comes to each main lift, the squat, bench, and deadlift, and who on our roster we have that might be doing something that's more outlierish, like more or less days of a certain lift and why. And we dive into Kristen competing at the SBD rally meet and how her prep is going for that as she's making a comeback into coming back to the platform for the first time in 2 years and more. It's a great conversation. If it's not your first time here, that means you came back for some reason. You must like our podcast. So please do leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple, and you can leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. It helps us out so much. It takes about 20 seconds to do it. It's free, and it is something that we appreciate highly because it helps us get the podcast out to more people. Appreciate all of you, and let's dive into today's episode.
All right, y'all. We are back. Kristen, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, Solana. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and it's sunny outside, which makes me so happy because we had days of rain, and now it's like 85 degrees today in New Jersey.
And it's in the 60s here in San Diego.
Hilarious.
And it's cloudy, and it's gross, and it's gray. It's called May Gray. May Gray and June Gloom is a big thing in San Diego and probably Southern California.
I never heard of that, but I did know it tended to rain around here, so I guess that's just the name for it. Okay, cool.
It never rains here, ever, like once every 3 years. But apparently, we are no longer in a drought, unrelated to fitness, but in case anyone cared about California.
Well,
We are not in a drought anymore.
you just have to move by me like I keep telling you to, and you'll have
I
all the seasons.
I know. Actually, so I don't want to jinx myself, but it's not like a big secret. But I will potentially be moving to Boca Raton and transferring to FAU for my PhD to work under Mike Zordos.
What? That's really cool.
Yeah. So when I was in Miami about a month ago for Gabby and Shane, their wedding.
Yes.
Yeah. So we went up to Boca for the day and I met up with him and the data-driven strength guys, and it was really fun. So yeah, I think 2025 I will be in Boca, which is at least on the same coast.
Yes. I'll take it.
Still the opposite side of the country, but I think, or the other end of the country.
But I say, like
at least
the
we're on
bottom.
the same coast. Yeah, the bottom end of the East Coast.
All right, I'll take that because I can handle visiting that area for you. And
yeah,
I'm like right next to New York City.
And I'm right next to Miami.
There we go.
Kind of. It'll be like an hour. I think it's like an hour away, maybe.
Close enough.
Which isn't bad. Yeah. So we'll do trips to Miami. We'll do trips to New York. It'll be a great time.
Hey. All right. So we came here today to talk about how we kind of choose the frequency of lifts for our athletes for squat, bench, and deadlift. And I think I'm gonna start with the squats. It can be when it comes to choosing frequency, when I get a new athlete, I always start with like, what was the frequency at before? And do I see a trend of their training going up? And like, if I do, what were the positive trends? What was the intensity, etc.? Like the intensity, the actual volume. From there, what I will say, most of my athletes, actually all my athletes, squat between 2 and 3 times a week. No one does once a week that I have right now because it's not enough. I don't think anyone really can. Like the only people I hear doing once a week is like Jesus, maybe, like people squatting 1,000 pounds and have to recover.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's so strong. I mean, even though he's bigger, but he's still squatting that 1,000 pounds on your back is a lot. So I would say other than maybe him and Ray Lewis, most people would probably do better with more frequency of 2 days a week. When do you change from 2 to 3?
Yeah, so if I change from 2 to 3, it's typically because I've already tried a few things. So if I see the primary day is not going well, it's not increasing, it's not improving, I will first play around with, okay, do we need to change the intensity of the secondary squat day? Do I need to put the intensity a bit higher? If that does not work, okay, should I change when they're doing it? For example, if they do Tuesday secondary day, Saturday's primary, and they feel like they're falling flat and like they just don't have the strength, I might move it to Wednesday. Like, just need to be a little bit closer to the primary day. If that does not work, and as long as I'm not in a place where I'm like, oh, the intensity just been way too high, I actually need to pull back, which typically has not been the case, but that can be it. So if that's not it, then I'm like, all right, let me look at the big leg accessories. Like if they're in a commercial gym, like when I have leg press or the hack squat or the belt squat, I'm like, where is that? And have they been progressing in it? Because I don't always want to push that super heavy. It depends where it is. But if I look, sometimes I'll find like, oh, like I might be putting like RPE 7, which people underestimate like RPE like 6 to 9. I'm like 7 leg press is still pretty hard if you can only get 3 more repetitions. Like I don't ever really go past an 8 RPE, and that's like maybe week 4 for like 1 step because that's really freaking hard. But I'm like, okay, have they actually increased the weight? Like some athletes be like, yeah, that's a 7. I'm like, you've been on the same weight for 2, 3 weeks, and like I didn't catch that, but like I did say to try to increase the weight, and you hitting the same numbers. Like, can you add 20 more pounds to it? And then once all that goes out the window, we tried all that, and it's just not working. I'm like, all right, you might just need to have a third squat day. And that third squat day is never going to be super heavy, but it's probably more so just to prime them because they might feel like it's kind of like a sensation of, I forgot how to squat. You know, I mean, like I get to my primary day and like my body doesn't feel like it's in the groove of squatting. You know, like that's a better way to say it. Because that's where for me, I squat now 3 times a week, and I've gone from 2 to 3. And I think in this prep, we started doing 3 times a week like 8 weeks ago. And I literally told my coach, I'm like, we need to go by 3 days a week because even though we have like I had leg press in there and between my secondary and primary day, I was like, I get to the barbell and it's like my body isn't comfortable with the weight at all until I get to back downs. Like it's just like my body's like, no, like what are you doing? This feels terrible. Until I get to like the last set of back downs. And I was like, it's like my body like doesn't know how to squat. But I squat twice a week.
So
And then we
funny.
did 3 days. And I'm like, oh, my body feels so good. Like it's in the groove to squat now. So that's typically when I add the third day. But it's more of a it's like the bottom of the list because I don't like to increase frequency of lifts unless I have to. Because a lot of people,
hmm
for multiple reasons, it's tough to add into your schedule. Or I don't want to just jump to that because if you just keep jumping to the frequency, all of a sudden, you know, you're at 3, 4 days a week and like, dang, do we really need this many squats? Like, it's gonna beat you up. Have a lot of fatigue.
Getting PTSD of my small off days.
How about you?
So I agree with you. I don't have any client who squats 1 day a week, but I also don't have any, I'm not working with any Jesuses that are squatting over 1,000 pounds. So most of them are 2 days a week. And I always am of the mindset that you want to do as little as possible while you're still making progress. Because if you were to jump right off the bat and say you're squatting 3 days or small of, which I think I was squatting for 5 days a week, mind you, I was a beginner. Uh, where do you progress from that, right? Like if you're already squatting 4 days a week and you have this like insane amount of volume, and then you're you probably won't stall. You'll probably get hurt before you plateau. But how do you progress from that, right? Like you're doing so much volume, so much intensity, so much frequency. There's like really not many other things that you can do. So I always start with, around 2 days a week, not minimal volume, but how much volume, how low volume can we get away with while you're still increasing? And then once plateau, maybe you add an extra set or you start adding load, but starting with as little as possible. So that way you have a lot of room to make the necessary adjustments. The only time that I'll ever add in a third day would kind of be the same thing where if we're the intensity, we can't get the intensity much higher. Maybe the volumes pretty high, don't want to add in more volume that day. So this person's doing like 6 sets of 6 on squats or whatever. Maybe we'll add in a third day, and that third day again would be more of a power day, pretty not intense, not high volume, and even not necessarily a main movement. So maybe it's a third day, but it's belt squatting, because you have deadlifts later in the week and maybe you don't want to pre-fatigue your back. So adding in something where you can get in some extra lower body work without fatiguing the upper body, that's kind of like my go-to. Or just for people who respond really well to higher frequency on squats, and using myself as an example is I respond really, really well to high volume, high frequency on squats, but my body just can't handle that. So when I was squatting 3 days a week, I was making a lot of progress, but it was competition squatting and my back was not having it. So those are other things that you have to consider too, is like, yeah, you might do well having, increasing frequency, increasing volume, increasing, all the other factors, but like, can your body handle that? Can you mentally handle that? Maybe even physically you feel fine, but just mentally you're like, this sucks. I do not feel like squatting today, or so it's like all these factors that you have to kind of consider. And so I would say majority of the people that I work with squat twice a week.
There's another big one for why I have someone squat 3 times a week and I might get them there faster. I have probably 20% of my athletes train at home. And they have limited stuff to train with, and a lot of them have purchased a belt squat attachment. But the belt squat attachment, if y'all know what that is like, is nothing like a regular belt squat. It's you have to be very hingy with it, and there's not like the handles you can push down with, so you can't really get that nice squat position where you're just fatiguing the crap out of your legs. It's really your back's getting fatigued. It's not the most comfortable for your hands to be at, so you're kind of like no hand support, and it's just a very different lift than a regular belt squat. So I have a client named Gina, and she actually just PR'd her squat last week by like 2.5 kilos, and she competes in 5 weeks. But even though she PR'd it by 2.5, I added in a third squat day because I had her doing. She also has a leg press, but it's the vertical leg press at home, and the vertical leg press is like my least favorite leg press. And also she couldn't even get like to even near what would be like a parallel position with her legs, and so I was like, you know what? These are just not going to get us like the actual muscle recruitment I need for you to like push that squat. And I've tried to like just use those two, the belt squat and leg press, and it has worked, but I gave her 3 squat days. I actually took out the vertical leg press for now because truly I'm like, I think this is loading your spine more than it's loading your legs. I can't do this anymore. So we're doing that. And I have a good amount of athletes who train at home, and like a lot of them are slow. I'm getting them to 3 times a week now with squats pretty quickly, especially if they don't have a belt squat attachment. We are just using dumbbells now. So it's like, dumbbell step ups, dumbbell, refill of a split squat. Some of them have SBD, so we do half fields. Like I love a good half field. That's a good one, but it's very tough to not have a leg press, not have a leg extension, even like stuff like that, and like progress you really well once I've had an athlete for like well over a year.
Right. Yeah. I really like the fact that you brought up like people's schedules or training at home, because that's another one that I deal with a lot is clients who maybe only have an hour to spend in the gym, right? Like they don't have 2 hours or 3 hours or like 4 hours that some people do. So sometimes in that case, maybe they only have time to do 1 or 2 sets on squats. Well, they'll do that 1 or 2 sets, and then on Monday and then Wednesday they'll do their other 2 sets, right? So just breaking up that volume throughout the week, even though it's the same, the volume's not really changing. It's just instead of doing, and I'm throwing a number out here, say you have like 4 sets of 4 reps on squats. Well, you do 2 sets of 4 on Monday, 2 sets of 4 on Wednesday, and then your regular squat training on Saturday or something like that, just so that they are not spending 2 hours in the gym. And that's actually something that I have a client, she's a personal trainer, so it's like she'll do her workout in between clients. And then there was a point where it was like she was doing her squat and bench and then or was doing her squat, but then she didn't have time for her bench. So I was like, all right, well, let's, we'll just drop the reps. We'll just add in an extra day because your Wednesday day is really light. It only takes you 40 minutes. You can add in 2 sets of squats and it won't add that much more time. So that's been really helpful. So it's like little things like that, like not even necessarily for uh, you know, optimal programming design or whatever, but like what's convenient for the athlete. And that's going to be the optimal program for them. Because if they can't complete the workout, then it doesn't matter.
That's such a good point. I have an athlete right now who competes in 2.5 weeks, and we're on a third block effort together. And I already know, I can already see it. The second we get through this competition, I gotta like adjust her training around because of time. It's just time. Like she's progressing.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of like, I couldn't get my accessories done. I had to do my bench press 3 hours later. She's a personal trainer. She's also like taking some classes, I think. And she's a mom of 2 kids, and they're
Yeah.
very young. And it's like they have like family gym day where the kids are like trying to crawl on top of her while she goes for a PR squat. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to like we're too close to me. I'm gonna have to adjust right after. Immediately.
Yeah. So you and I with Sarah, she's my client and she's your nutrition client. And we just had
Yes.
her compete this past weekend. And she did awesome, by the way. She PR'd her total by 17.5 kilos, made weight, no issues. She said she felt great. So thank you, Solana. Woo. But she's another one who she goes to Harvard and she's going for a PhD.
Oof, I know.
And I don't know if you spoke with her,
Yep.
but she's going to Australia next week. I
Mm-hmm.
think she leaves. And then she's gone for about a month. And so she just qualified for nationals in September. So her and I were having our call yesterday, and she's like, okay, I fly out this day. For these next 5 days, I'm going to be in the wilderness off the grid. And so we're like trying to figure out, okay, well, what day will you like be in a city? What day will you have access to a gym? So it's like if you were to look at the program, you would look at it and be like, what the hell? You have her training one day and then not training for 5 days. Then she trains 3 days straight and then 4 days off. And, it's so random. And if you're not knowing the situation, you'd be like, that's a really bad program. but, but because we're trying to make it work based off of her schedule. So whenever she has, and she's traveling throughout Australia to different cities. And so when she's in a bigger city, she's going to be training for 3 days straight. We have her doing like squat, bench, deadlift. I don't care about bicep curls. We're focusing on the main movements. So her days are SBD, pretty much all of them, unless they're back to back. But then I have her doing like, push-ups, or if she finds a tree branch and to do some pull-ups,
I
body
love
weight
this.
squats. And she said, because she what is she, a geologist? So she
Yes.
studies rocks. And if I butcher that, I apologize. So she's like, I'm gonna have a 40-pound backpack filled with rocks. And I'm like, sweet, we're gonna be doing squats with rocks and shoulder presses and push-ups with these rocks. And so it's just like finding these things to make it work. Uh, and I think that's kind of like what coaching is really, is at the end of the day, it's the program design. We can have that perfect program, but if you can't follow it, again, it doesn't matter. So if that means you're doing freaking tree pull-ups, whenever you find a thick tree branch, we're going to do it. Or 40-pound rock squats. That's how we are prepping for nationals for the next month.
And we love to see it. I was gonna ask you if you're gonna have her squat rocks, because like she told me she's gonna be climbing around with rocks on her back. I was like, maybe she can just like hold the bag in front of her and just
Yeah. We're doing tempo, goblet,
I
squat,
love it.
rocks, or rock squat. I don't know, whatever. But we're gonna make it work. And she's really good about she let me know beforehand. She gave me all the dates that she can train, can't train. she's willing to put in the work on the days where she's off the grid and do these at-home style workouts and continue prepping for nationals.
And I just want to say too, I'm actually gonna make a little case study slide about her probably tomorrow about her nutrition because we did a very different cut. We did a very different water / gut cut for this meet. But one thing I want to say about Sarah, she's the most organized client I've ever seen in my life. This girl, like, do you understand? I had her walking like 12 to 15,000 steps a day on top of her being at Harvard and doing all of her training. I had her doing at one point twice a week spin bike for like 20 to 30 minutes, low intensity steady state. Cause I was like, literally, I need your weight to be exactly here before we start. Like, and she got all of it done while being a student at Harvard and training. I was like, I know I'm telling you what to do, but I'm just impressed that you're doing all of it. Like, you're really doing all of it.
That's why she's at Harvard and we're not.
I know. So I just wanted to give you your flowers, Sarah. Like, you impressed me daily, and that's why you had such a great meet because you literally did every single thing I told you to do.
Yeah. And I remember, so she competed, I think January was the meet, if I remember correctly, the meet prior to this past meet that she just did this weekend. I want to say it was in January. And I remember I'm speaking to her, and I think she's about 2 weeks out from her meet. And so maybe you can touch on that as what you did, because she was tired. I think she was never overweight, but she was definitely, her body weight was higher. So she had to do I think a larger cut, where this one, she kind of maintained her body weight. And it's not that she had a bad performance in January, but it wasn't like this. She didn't hit PRs, right? Or at least not, it wasn't a 17 kilo PR.
Yeah.
But just her mindset from last meet to this meet, and how she said she felt so much better going into this meet. What did you do differently with her nutrition?
Yeah, a lot of communication. So going into the first meet, not that we didn't communicate the first time, but going into the first meet, her body weight, she went into that meet and she was on her period. And her body weight
on her
spikes. I know. All right. But to be clear,
that she does. I'm like, oh, of course.
Her body weight spikes approximately 4 pounds for about 4 to 5 days every single time, like clockwork. Like, it's like, and it stays. And so for the first meet, we did a water cut. I had to look at everything, honestly, but she was probably drinking not quite a gallon, probably like 100 ounces of water daily. So I did a smaller water cut, like where the most we got up to about 2 gallons of water, because that was still more than double what she was drinking already. And we did a gut cut for 2 days. Okay, so we only had to lose like 4-ish pounds. But the gut cut killed her because she does really bad with high fat. She doesn't feel good on high fats. And she had mentioned she doesn't like being on, like, she doesn't like high fats. But I was like, okay, like, neither do I. But I was like, it's just 2 days, no big deal. And 2 days out, I had her do the first day of the gut cut. I actually had her eat like a sandwich at one point. No, I'm lying. I'm sorry. It was a 3-day gut cut. So at one point, we threw a sandwich in there because she was like not feeling great. So like, okay, we can have like a essential sandwich in there and then go back to having protein shakes. We get to meet day. She was like, I just don't feel good. Like, I think like just high fats don't have me feeling good. So even though she made weight, we did the regular refeed protocol. She had, Pedialyte, triol rolls, and a lot of carbs with salt. She was like, I just don't feel strong. And so they, all right, so you really don't do well. Like you don't just not like high fat. Like, your body doesn't respond well to high fat, and those are two different things. And I didn't know that because it was our first ever gut cut. So they, all right, this meet, same thing. Period is gonna be the same week of the meet, right? I'm like, I don't care. We're gonna get this done. And I was like, I'm gonna make sure you feel amazing on this meet because it's my duty. So we did 0 gut cut whatsoever. No gut cut at all. She does, her body weight is more stable and more consistent when she drinks a lot of water in general. So I had her drinking a gallon of water a day, period, all the time. That kept her body weight to be like 127-ish. We had to get to 122.5. When she would be under on water, she'd be like 128. Like, it was crazy. Like, yo, your body literally, you immediately go up in weight when you don't drink a gallon of water a day. So drink a gallon of water every day, like, for I don't even know how long. I don't know how long. We get to meet week. I had her since she was at a gallon of water a day. We got up to 2.5 gallons of water during the gut cut. We did a pretty substantial sodium load as well. Really paying attention to sodium load. Had her up to an additional 2 to 3 grams a day of sodium. That was addition to what she already was at. So I took her average and said, you're gonna add to that. I had her measure out the sodium, and then she put that in her water, had her feeling really, really good. And then by the last 2 days, we cut the water down a lot, and she was just able to feel like way better because she had like regular food the whole time. The regular food the whole time, but the
Yeah.
sodium was very, very, very helpful because it depends on the person. I don't always do a big sodium load. Some people just don't need it. Like for myself, I
Yeah.
haven't done a sodium load in years, and I always make weight. I can do days of gut cutting, and I'm chilling on meat day, and I feel amazing. So it depends on the person. But for her, like I think also because she, again on her period, that we needed to do like a major sodium load. We had to have her eating regular food, so she felt good. Um, those are the major changes. And then we get to meat day. We
Yeah.
did not change the
You killed it.
refeed protocol. I think I just had her drink a little bit more Pedialyte before she went to the squat, like one plus an additional quarter of a second Pedialyte, which is much different, but she felt so much better. I was like, okay, so overall, we had to have you drink more water outside of training, like outside of competing. We had to do a sodium load. You
Yeah.
can't gut cut, period. Like she just has to have low fast throughout her life, which is fine. But
Fine.
you know, you live and learn because I really was like, okay, like you're the first person I've ever had who responded that poorly to a gut cut ever.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you kind of bring that up too, because I think we spoke about this briefly on one of our last podcasts about how us as coaches, we have no idea what we're doing. It's trial and error, and a more experienced coach tends to figure it out quicker than a less experienced coach. But that doesn't mean that we know right off the bat, right? So and that's just a very blunt way of putting it, but like to be honest, like no one knows. And we've heard about gut cuts. It's become this kind of not a fad, but it's become more popular recently. I would say within the last few years. I think prior to in 2020, it was just the water cut, water loading, sodium load, you know. And then the whole idea of a gut cut comes to fruition and everyone starts doing a gut cut now, right? And majority of people respond really, really well. But majority is not everyone. And there's always going to be some of these outliers who may not respond well. And that's the same thing with training, right? You might have anecdotal experience of people respond really, really well to 2 days of training on squats. And maybe there's an outlier who somehow just does really, really well on 4. And you're like, all right, well, I would never normally program this, but you seem to be doing really well. You're not in pain, you're not fatigued. I'm going to keep going with it, you know? And so these are kind of things that as a coach, it's like, okay, well, what did this person do well with? What did they not do well with? And what do I know based off of previous experience, right? So, and especially in Sarah's case, we did a gut cut, which you've done with plenty of athletes, but for whatever reason, her body just did not seem to respond well. And I would say that's probably an outlier. And took it out this week and she did absolutely fine. So now we know moving forward that she probably won't be doing a gut cut.
Never again.
Maybe one day she will compete not on her period. I hope she doesn't care that
I
we're
don't
talking about her
know.
menstrual cycle.
Oh, I hope not either, because I mean, it's like the main topic of our conversation. Me and her, like whenever I talk to her, what day you on?
Yeah. But it's a female thing. So you know what? Number one, I will ask her permission and make sure that it's okay. 2, it shouldn't be taboo. I get my period. Well, I'm on birth control, so I don't. But women get their period. That's a thing. Women pee their pants a lot sometimes when they're deadlifting. It's a thing. It's uncomfortable. I told you about my drinking experience. It's a thing, but these are all things that are kind of taboo, but it happens. And so I do think that we should at least try to normalize it by not feeling uncomfortable talking about it. But out of respect, I'll still ask her.
Yeah, for sure. um, it's literally coaching, it's a lot of trial and error. I had a moment of like, I mean, when I tell you I was so determined, I was like, no matter what, like this next meet, we're going to crush it, because like I knew the strength she has. She would be like, I was PRing here, PRing there. And when she didn't do well, I was like, I need to fix this, because this was the gut cut. Like it was the nutrition. And like it wasn't even a lack of listening. Like she mentioned like I don't like higher fats, but like again, there's a difference between like I don't love higher fats and like I feel
My
like dog
body
doo
doesn't
doo.
like, yeah.
Like I can't squat, I can't bend. Like, oh, that's very different. You know what I mean? So I'm just happy that even though I had a moment of like, dang, I feel like I failed an athlete. It's the worst feeling in the world, by the way. You feel like you failed an athlete, but it's
I,
very normal. This happened. Like
yes.
the best coaches. I've seen Marcellus talk about many times how like even his best athletes, like Bob wasn't always Bob. And I remember Bob 2021 Nationals didn't go well. And it was, they had to completely change the programming in the taper. And they changed it. And it
Yeah.
was great. But guess what? It wasn't great in 2021. They had to adjust it. So
Yeah.
technically, right, it wasn't the best for him, but you learn and then you fix it. And that's all coaching is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we touched on this before too, is every prep is not going to be the same either. So even though historically they may have done really well in one situation, maybe there's a different life stress that comes to fruition where, and I spoke on Chelsea before, is how she was doing really, really well. And then she started school. So there's this added life stress that she is now dealing with that she didn't have before. And so we're talking about bench frequency. I think she was benching up to 6 days a week at one point, but because she's being in school, there's no way that we really would have been able to bench 6 days a week. So we were doing 4 days, just we have to make it work somehow. Unfortunately, it didn't go as well as she wanted to at nationals, but that's just kind of how it is.
Wasn't
So
that a
it
bench PR?
happens. Uh,
Wasn't that a bench PR?
I think it was a tie because she had done bench nationals. It
Okay.
was a bench only. Yeah. So I think she tied her PR. So it wasn't eight. She deadlifted, it was a squat PR and a total PR. She tied bench and I think tied deadlift.
Okay, got it. Well, the third bench move really fast is all I'ma say. So that's all I'ma say. But so let's go on to bench press frequency. So personally, I don't have a single athlete who benches more than 4 times a week right now. And I don't have any crazy outlier athletes. You know what I mean? I don't have like the super crazy high arch, like perfectly perfect body built for bench press. Like most of my athletes are just long arm or regular arm, regular rib cage, can't manipulate it to be up in the ceiling. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like regular. And so when it comes to like you mentioning 6 days, like, and she's a major outlier. Like she's one of the best benches in the world. Like her numbers are comparable to the best in the world. That's Chelsea. And then you have to like people need to realize like most people don't need 6 times a week. It takes somebody who has like that body type or like especially limited range of motion. So it's not even like you're getting that much work when it comes to your actual pectoral muscles and your actual body. You're not gonna be as fatigued, so you can handle it more. You need more high stimulus all the time because it's such a small range of motion. You can't be doing like super lightweight. And so then you need like 5, 6 days a week. My athletes do
Yes.
3 to 4 days. When they start with me, if I get a brand new athlete, I get a lot of brand new, like I've never competed or I've competed like twice and I don't really have a program to show you because I was just doing some BS. So I'll show it to you. I
Hmm.
look at it, I'm like, I can't even like I can't use this. Like to like help guide me. I can't. Like this is just like
Yeah.
random stuff. So I typically have them start at 3 times a week. Unless they were somehow only doing twice a week and making progress, like that's even if it started out twice a week, like we're gonna quickly get to 3. And then we kind of just go from there, and you can easily dose it so that eventually we make the intensities higher, make the volume higher on those 3 days. And just like you mentioned earlier, I try to hold off on adding an extra day for any lift really as long as possible because you can only add but so many days, but we can always play around with the volume and the intensity. And you don't want to get to 4, 5, 6 days too quickly, and then you are hitting a wall, have nowhere to go, and then you have to just like keep making the volume higher, or you have to go back a day and you're like, oh, like what did we just do here? So
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 to 4 times a week is a sweet spot for most of my athletes. I can only think of one person who I can see in the future will probably need 5. She has, like, we just adjusted her bench positioning. She's very new to me. Her bench positioning, so it's more of a foot forward position. Her rib cage is much higher with it, and she was struggling with back pain for a couple of her lifts before she came to me. So that's why we changed her positioning. And I can just tell, I'm like, this is gonna really help your bench a lot. And we're only benching 4 times a week, but I'm like, in the future, you will need 5. It won't be anytime soon, but I can just see it now. I'm like, you have a limited range of motion, the bench is going up, like it will come.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say, so obviously you see some of the best benchers in the world. Meg Scanlon is another one. She's a great bencher. Agata from
Poland.
Poland, she's a great bencher. But if you look at their, the range of motion, I have long limbs. So when I'm benching like a foot, my range of motion. Where, Chelsea might have 3 to 4 inches, Mike Scanlon, same thing, where her range of motion is a lot less. So you have to think about, especially with women, I think I did a post on this a while ago, is that as load gets heavier on the bench press, our pecs become more, not dominant, but like greater emphasis, which is the opposite in men. Whereas men at lower loads, their pecs are dominant or are activated. And as load increases, it becomes more of a tricep exercise. So in that case, it's like men focus on triceps. And again, this is a general, like there's always going to be outliers. But women, it's their pecs. So if I'm adding in accessories, I'm adding in pec exercises for especially for women. But you'll see that the range of motion, there is that limited like pec involvement just because the range of motion is so much less. So you're moving the bar less. That's less work overall. And so they could probably get away with doing more frequency than someone like myself who has a greater range of motion, just because of over time, even I deal with like some shoulder stiffness and shoulder pain. And I mean, that probably comes with age and just because I've been doing it for so long. So my body is just like,
No.
fuck off.
Your body's like, no.
But there's certain people that can respond better just because for that their leverages, and they are good examples of someone who could get away with a higher bench frequency.
So I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I've ever heard it said that like men use their triceps more versus women use their pecs more just in general. Is that literally a range of motion thing though? Is it because women are more flexible with their
It's a
spine?
load. It's a load thing. I can send you the research article. And again, this is, a research article done on, I don't know, 20 participants, right? Semi-resistance trained, not power lifters. So these are all things that you kind of have to consider. But what they found was that as load increases, there's a greater emphasis on our pectoral muscles as women, where the opposite is true for men. As load begins to increase, their triceps become more, there's a greater emphasis on their triceps. So it's interesting that there's like that opposite. And if you notice, a lot of times with women, we fail off of our chest. Whereas men, and again, this is not everybody, but like John Hack, right? I'm just going to use him as an example just because everyone knows who he is. If he fails a bench, it's like almost to lockout. It's like he's 3/4 of the way there, and I'm just like, just move it. You got like 2 more inches to go. Damn it. Like if that was me, I'd have no trouble because as long as I get it past like that first couple of inches off my chest, I'm Gucci. But he's the opposite, where if he fills his bench, it's like 3/4 of the way up. That's because he's so tricep dominant.
That
Interesting, right?
because I'm having flashbacks to like major people who fail. Whenever Bob fails, it's totally like that far up too. And whenever I've
Yeah.
seen like, oh my god,
Major benchers, it's men,
but it didn't like
and
hit
they
me that like I don't see women fail that
It's
point because of that. Like
it's mostly, if you see a woman fail, it's majority of the time is going to be immediately off of their chest, like it's just not budging, or like the first, they get it 1 to 2 inches off their chest and then fail, and that's pecs. So very interesting to think about. But
very
yes,
interesting.
so if we get into accessories, if I'm coaching a female, we're doing a lot of pec accessories. If it's a male, we're doing a lot of triceps. Most of the time. Because again, always an outlier. There's always that guy who just fails off his chest.
And you're like, why? You gotta be you.
Why?
Let's talk your favorite accessories then for bench press.
Yeah. So I really love for bench press, like a deep deficit push up, like a weighted, so like a weight on your back, and you're doing like on what, like a little
Like blocks?
weight deficit block, sure, yeah. Deficit push-ups. I really like incline bench press, usually more for volume, because I'm never really going to have someone max out on that, but just to get a lot of volume or hypertrophy work on their incline bench, or dumbbell incline, dumbbell bench press with like a deep stretch at the bottom.
Love it. Yeah.
And dips. I like dips.
There you go.
What about you?
Yeah, pretty similar. I love a solid, like a lower incline dumbbell bench press. Definitely want them to do full range of motion. I love when I get someone new and they're like, wait, you want me to go deeper than this? Like they're just used to like basically stopping where the bar would stop. I'm like, but the point of dumbbells is we can move them around the ribs. Like, yeah. So we can get deeper. So yeah, a good dumbbell incline bench. I like flat dumbbell bench press. Love tricep dips for sure. Depends on the person, because tricep dip, you have to kind of be strong already to do tricep dips well. That's a big thing that people don't talk about, because we're always talking about the best of the best. I'm like, coaches who take on beginner people, I don't always go straight to tricep dip, because we do it like, I don't love, if you do them assisted on a machine, if you need too much assistance at that point, I'm like, we can just do a tricep extension. Like if you need like more than half your body weight assistance, let's try some extension.
Bench dips are usually a good alternative.
Bench dips, if they do it perfectly, yes. If they hold their body in the right position, yes. Absolutely.
What else?
Besides that, no, I have a couple of staples. I like the sternal chest press, which is basically you have a cable and you're pushing it across your body. If you're on YouTube or Spotify, you can see me doing the motion.
Is it kind of like a fly almost, but closer to the body?
Yes, it's a fly but close to the body. So like the stretch is so good in the pec, like when you like bring it across the chest, like it's such a deep stretch. I love it. Like it's like right where it hits the muscle, I feel sore. I'm obsessed with that movement. I'm like, we're all doing it. Like, half my clients are
I'm really excited is if we see all these women all of a sudden start doing these like pec focused exercises, I would be like, yes, they listen to our podcast.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I also appreciate a machine chest press, but it has to, I don't love it when it's like the fixed handle that's just like horizontal. Because at that point I'm like, you're basically doing the barbell bench. But I do like it if you can take like free handles and put them around the horizontal like presses, and like then we can like change the position of the hands. Love that. Besides that, definitely tricep extensions are like probably twice a week at minimum, or unless we're doing tricep dip too. And those are my go-tos. I do appreciate weighted push-ups. I do appreciate them.
They're humbling, to be honest. Like even I if I don't have it in my program right now, but when I did, I'm like, I don't know, I put thinking that I'm a bad bitch and I'm going to put like 45 pounds on my back, and I get through 5 reps and I'm like, I think I need to lower this. It's humbling. Like everyone thinks push-ups, like, oh, I bench 200 plus pounds, I can do a freaking push-up. So I'm like, yeah, okay, let's see. So that's like, I feel like a very undervalued, underestimated exercise, and it's one that you can do at
Anywhere.
home.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, it's another one that I like that I actually don't program too much. But I've done it for myself in the past is like a cambered bar. You know, the bench that it's not a straight bar, it's kind of
I know.
like a curve.
Yep.
Yeah, a cambered bar. And so that one's nice just because it's like you have to, it's that overloading that stress position
Wait,
because you
do you
can,
mean
yeah.
buffalo bar or camber? Because cambered is like a very deep, like it's
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of a buffalo bar. Is or buffalo, the round one. You know what I'm talking about, where it's rounded. Okay, buffalo. Well, okay, it's a buffalo bar. I don't know. I didn't do these like West Side movements. All I use is the
listen, I
freaking
went to
barbell. So,
kabuki strength seminars back in the day, so
oh,
I know.
oh, oh, you got chains. You're doing bands and chains. But the buffalo bar, buffalo, is rounded, and so you can actually like increase the range of motion. You can increase that stretch by doing like it's a barbell bench press, but um, you have to go a little deeper. So that's another one that I really like. That I do not give for everybody. There's only a special few who get that one.
I'm about to start getting jealous because I've never actually had weighted push-ups in my program. I just give out to my athletes.
You should ask Brad, be like, can you give me deficit weighted push-ups in your program? And then I want you to tell me how humbling it is and how you'd be like,
Fine.
okay, I'm weak. Do it.
Every my
It's humbling.
my gym has every bar known to man, but I'm like, don't give me buffalo. I already have a long range of motion. Don't give me buffalo. Bench press. At that point, just give me
And
like
that's
I'll go feet up dumbbell bench at that point. Just, please don't make me.
yeah, and that's honestly like for someone who has like a short range of motion. So someone, you know, like Meg or Chelsea or those really yeah, who have a reduced range of motion, they would probably benefit from being able to do that deeper stretch.
All right. Deadlift. Deadlift. I've never had anyone go more than twice a week on the deadlift. I do have some once a week.
Yeah, men or women?
Woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My once a
I
week. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I only have once a weekers, but they're all males, and they're bigger guys too. Like I work with a few USPA WRPF guys, and like big guys deadlifting like close to 700-800 pounds, and yeah, they're benching or they're deadlifting once a week.
Yeah, that is typically the most common when it comes to a once a week deadlift. How many do I have? I'm thinking of my one client, Shelby, right now, who definitely is once a weeker. Maybe I have one other I can't think of, but she's an outlier in general. She is interesting. We
Mhm.
do a 3 time a week squat, and her squat is going beautiful. We do 4 times a week. Yeah, we do 4 times a week bench press now. It was 3 at one point. We do 4 times a week bench press. And we do once a week deadlift because when I hired doing twice a week, I was like, I think I'm gonna kill her. I think she's gonna actually pass away. She's conventional puller, and I do have her do barbell RDLs as well on a second day. She cannot handle the stress of the heavy conventional twice a week. And she's also the kind of person who like the deadlift truly shows up at the meet. Like we're gonna do our first meet together. We're in 6 weeks or something like that. But in her past, because she's competed multiple times before, she's like, listen, just so you know, like I never get anywhere near my best deadlift on like in training. Like meet day, like she gets like 50 pounds, like a solid 50 pounds. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
wow. Oh,
Damn,
okay.
I wish I had that problem
Like
too.
not like 10 pounds, like like
Yeah.
all right. So I'm like, as long as we are making some steady incremental like quote unquote progress, as in like the weights are going up, but we're not touching,
Yeah.
within like 10% really of the top and her top range, I think we'll be fine. Like, and she's about to go. So this week is her week for her last week before we go into meat blocking. We have 4 weeks. And I'm like, okay, so we're gonna do our really our first heavy single deadlift this week. And the range is ridiculous. I'm like, you're gonna hit anywhere from 360 to 395. Yes, that is your range. I think that's a pretty big range, especially for a female
That's a
athlete. You know
huge,
what I mean? It's not like it's
yeah.
She's like, I understand the assignment. She's like, it makes complete sense. Okay.
Oh my God. I think my problem is that after a certain weight, every rep just feels the same. Like my deadlift goes from RPE 6 to 9.5. Like there's no in between, I feel like. And it just, and I can add, like, I'll be like, all right, that was an RPE 9. I can still add 20 kilos. I'm like, that's an RPE 9 until like the bar just doesn't come off the ground. So I don't know. Deadlift is a very interesting exercise, especially if you pull sumo, because it's so technical. And yeah, I feel like anything, it's like any sort of deviation, I can go from a 7 to a 10 immediately.
Some people are like that. And the only lift I see that way, well, that's not true. I've seen it with squat, but it's kind of more rare. Deadlift is that lift where like somebody will be like, okay, that was really hard, and going up in weight. Like I feel like that's what's another good example? Kim Walford's a good example of that, where like she'd be shaking on the first attempt and she gets second and third.
Yeah, and you're like, what?
I'm
What?
confused. I thought you opened too heavy and you were done. Like what
Or
happened?
or my second rep, because I'm able to create better tension, is always better than the first. So I'm always like, there's gonna be a time in the meet where I'm gonna just be like, don't count my first one, let me just do 2 reps real quick, and then like just count that one.
Well,
That one was better.
that's very common where you literally are from that
Yeah,
first rep, you now are in the perfect position because your first position was a little bit off.
yeah.
You're in perfect position. You have that loading from the eccentric that you just did. You go into it and boom, it feels better. Jaj Jacob is a great example of that one where me and Steve say this all the time. We watch her do like a PR set of 5 and we just watch the first rep and we cut it off because the rest doesn't matter because her 1 rep max will be like 3% more than that. 3% more than that set of 5 because that first rep that was a
That
grind,
is
that was really
so,
what it is. That's like where her true max
yeah.
is, but then she can just rep out 4 more and it does not matter. Like
But that's got to be a positioning thing from her start position on the first rep that I would like. So for her, I'm not her coach, so I don't know, but I would just be like, you're getting singles. You're just doing singles. And you're all the singles for you. And
yeah.
then like pausing or something. But that's just like, I don't know, immediately my guess. Who knows? But
Yeah. The
yeah.
amount of athletes
Deadlift
that
is
have
interesting.
doing reset deadlifts at this point, I'm about to just ban
Oh
regular
yeah.
deadlifts. Why do regular deadlifts and we can just take a nice little break between each rep? What's the point? Like let's just do
So I
reset all the
do
time.
a lot of times, so I'll have, like their primary deadlift day, but their secondary deadlift day is just like 5 sets of one or 6 sets of one, or or 10 sets of one, or something where they're just practicing singles at like 70% of their, maybe 70 to 80% of their max, and you're just doing it for one, yeah, just 1 rep. And that's just because we don't want to fatigue you so much where the following workouts are hindered. But 2 sets of 5, like you're only really getting 2 quality reps in, because the first 2 are shit, the rest are just better because your positioning is better. So we're going to work on positioning first and get 10 shitty reps in, as opposed to 2 shitty reps and 4 good ones. But the first rep counts, so we gotta fix that first.
Yeah. I've actually been doing that a little bit more with certain people, not everybody, but a lot more
Yeah.
people where we do a cluster set because I'm seeing like
Hmm.
there's a lot of benefit to it, especially when a lot of people can't handle in 2 heavy deadlift days a week. Like, especially with, I have mostly female athletes and, some of them are doing 3 times a week squat because they literally need it to progress the squat or twice a week squat, but like we're hitting pretty heavy loads because they can't progress off of like, let's just do 60% everyone. No, like you have to go pretty heavy. So I'm seeing the
Yeah.
benefit of like, let's do like a cluster set of 5 or 6 or 8. And we're taking like cluster set, we take like 30 seconds between each one, like it's full on like, and get
Yeah.
up and walk away and
Yep.
turn around and go into the next one.
Yeah. I say usually for me is I used to do 30 seconds, but I would like, even for me, I'd struggle to do that because I'd be like, oh, that was like closer to a minute. Like for me to just catch my breath. So usually I'll just say like about 1 minute rest in between. So 10 minutes of training, which is great for someone who's kind of limited on time too, because they
Mm-hmm.
just did their deadlift workout in 10 minutes.
Yes, it's very convenient for that. That's why I like ascending. When someone trains and they have like
Oh,
one
I
hour,
love ascending.
all right, ascending it is. Go
I
up
love ascending.
and
Yes.
then we're done. Come on, move on.
I think for me, it's like especially if I were to work up to a top set, it takes so much mental energy to get my mind right and get in the zone. Have you ever done this where you're like going for a max and you're like you're in the zone and and then you hit it and then it's like you're so done after
Mhm.
that and then I'm like, oh shit, I still got like 2, 3 back off sets and it's only at maybe like 80% of what I just did, but I'm like, oh my god, that's so heavy.
Yes,
It
it's called
sucks.
mental fatigue. It's very
Yes,
common. It's when your athlete tells you that the back downs felt like dog doo doo, but the top set was great, and you look at it and you realize like you can just tell from looking at it, it's like you're just
you're
mentally
just
drained.
not.
You're mentally
Yeah.
drained, like
And
because
I've
like the training's gone great, the everything was great till we got to that week 4 back down.
Yeah. So sometimes like if I've kind of switched that up where they just work up to a single or whatever, like their top. This is like closer to meet prep where I'm like, you're not even doing back off sets. Just do that top set because anything we do after that is going to be one, it's going to feel like shit and you're so fatigued that we don't want to like risk a potential injury, or two, the load is just so low that there's like really no point to it. And then that's kind of where the secondary day will come in where it's like, okay, with after, the primary day and then your secondary day is where you get in a little bit more of that volume. But that's honestly just because it's like after that top set you're just done for some people, so I'm like, all right, you're just doing that, you're done.
I had a beautiful revelation. Literally, it was this week. It was this week because I have a lot of heavy lifts this week. 'Cause I'm 5 weeks out, so it's the last heavy week. And
Ooh, what meet are you doing?
I'm doing Rising Tide in New Jersey, a local
Ooh,
meet.
hell yeah, a local one.
Yes. But
Oh,
it was
and you're
invite
gonna.
only. Ah.
Ooh, is it a paid meet?
It is. First place is 5 grand. I think it's 2,500 and 1,000.
Oh damn, is that USAPL?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I was like,
we'll
oh, they do paid meets now, must be nice.
it aren't you we're gonna talk about your meet in a second. But anywho, it's
uh
been announced now, so we talking about it.
I know, but when I was USAPL doing local meets, we didn't get nothing.
Not I know. Well, it's a beautiful time to be a powerlifter today, huh?
I
But
got a I got a participation trophy.
oh my god. But I did want to say my revelation. So I've tried it all from like the slap me in the back ammonia, like go all that to like, you know what, I want to be so chill that I have no music on. I'm just going for it and acting like it's a regular day. And I have finally found my balance where I'm like, okay, I can't handle being overstimulated, but I do need a little bit of focus. And all I do now is I load the weight, I stare at the bar. The music doesn't really matter, but I might put on a song for fun, but like me, I'm not concerned about the song. And when I'm getting ready for it, I'm like, Solana, the last one felt amazing. So do the exact same thing. That's all I say. I'm like, don't touch me. No one slap me. I'm not doing the ammonia anymore. Like, I'm just like really focused. And I just remember how the last set went. I'm like, what you literally just did 4 minutes ago, just do it again. I just be, it helps me just be
Mhm.
in the moment versus like, it's all on the
Yeah.
line. And it's just like, no, like literally just repeat the thing you just did. And that helps me so much now. Repeat what I just did 4 minutes ago.
Yeah. I'm the most boring lifter to watch. I've realized that. You know how everyone makes like facial expressions and then they scream on the platform and slap themselves and they walk back and forth and grunting. I'm just walk straight up to the platform, do my lift, leave the stage. That's it. Like no hype, whatever. I'm the worst person to watch where it comes to like entertainment. I'm suck. I'm sorry, guys. I have no emotion. I'm just like, just get me off the stage.
But it depends on the person. Not everyone can handle being hyped. And I love watching people who are entertaining. And like I wish I could be entertaining. And I will say though, I still on the platform before a squat, I do slap my chest real quick. It's not like anything intense, but I do a little like and then I
Yeah.
go a little chest slap. No, it's like one like, and I just go. And I'm like, yeah, that's my trademark. But overall, though, I just before I even get, I used to be like before I get to the platform, like in the back, when they have the ammonia ready and they slap. I'm like, I gotta stop doing this. Like this is not working for me.
Yeah. I think maybe just because I'm so used to training alone and like hyping myself up without music, that's just how I am in meet. I kind of wonder what would happen if I was a little bit more aggressive in my training and, get my beast mode on and see what happens on the platform. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll try to be entertaining next meet.
So speaking of next meet, I know you'll be at SBD rally that was just announced
I
officially.
will. I know, so I can officially talk about it. I told Solana like a month ago or something, and then I was like, yeah, I can't post about it yet.
I know, and then we talked about
So,
rally, and we had to talk about everybody but you, and I was like, I'm so annoyed.
uh, oh, yeah. So that will be my first meet back in 2 years. I kind of just like wanted to do a meet, and so I reached out to Pete and was just like, what do I need to do to qualify? And he's like, well, I pick wild cards, so do you want to? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. Um, which will be really interesting because if you look at my best total, it's like 40 kilos less than what the record is. But I hit that in 2021, and I haven't 2022 when I competed at nationals. You know that story. I was
Mhm.
pretty heavily in my one man parties. So it went well. I mean, I won, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I was definitely not in the right mindset, and I was definitely not training to be the best that I could be. And in fact, I like was just half-assed it kind of thing. So I'm really excited to see what it'll be like sober and training and pushing myself and yeah, just seeing. I'm honestly, I'm going in there to get like, I'm going in there with, I don't want to say no expectations. I don't want to say, like high expectations on myself. I'm going in there to PR and just see what I can do and just have the best meet that I can possibly have.
I love it.
And hopefully that means winning, but I'll be happy with PRs. But I also want to win. So we'll see.
I'm so excited to see you compete. So, like, do you feel like your training now that it's been announced, you feel like more focused because you kept mentioning, I know you were dabbling in track and field, more so for fun, and then
Yeah.
you were like, my training is just so like, I just don't care to be in the gym.
Yeah, so there's definitely, and I think that honestly, I say this to my clients all the time, is that it's so much easier to go to the gym when you're training for something as opposed to just working out. And that's why you see a lot of people, like the first of the year, where they're like maybe motivated for the first 2 weeks and then they just taper off. And that's because one, there's has to be some self-discipline and accountability there because what happens when you're no longer motivated to go to the gym? And so you and I think, are competitive people and will still go. But I find myself when I wasn't competing and I wasn't competing for 2 years, I would skip more workouts. I would kind of go to the gym and just half-ass it, or I would get my main lifts in and I'd be like, I'm not doing my accessories. Everything that you tell your client not to do. So kind of deciding, okay, I'm getting my shit together. I have a meet prep. So now it's not just going to the gym to work out. I'm going in to train because I have a competition. And it kind of helps with the motivation. It kind of forces me to, okay, I need to kind of push myself a little bit here. I can't just keep going through the motion. So yeah, I would say 100% it does.
I love it. I think anyone can relate to that. Like you have a meet on the calendar, and it's like, well, no matter what, the day's gonna come, so I better be ready. And now you can just look forward to
Yeah,
that day every single training session you do. So
exactly. And what's nice is my training, not to say that I'm a newbie because I'm not, obviously, but my strength levels right now are increasing significantly. The first week when I was training, so like 2 weeks ago, my top set was like a competition style squat for 135 kilos at like an 8 RPE. And then this week I did high bar, 135 kilos, same weight at like a 6 RPE. So it's just my strength levels are increasing a lot quicker than probably most people, just because I'm not untrained, I'm trained, but I'm not peaked. So my strength levels are coming back like pretty fast. And that's why I always tell people, like, if you take time off, like, don't worry about it, it'll come back. And it's coming back, and it's always fun to like increase my lifts by like 5 kilos every week or something. It'll slow for sure, but but I have like the newbie gains and the newbie excitement. So that's kind of cool too.
who is coaching you for this meet?
So Alfred from Reformance. He and I kind of initially I was going to coach myself, and I've kind of been coaching myself for the past year almost. I did work with another coach for a little bit, but I decided to just do my own thing. But this it's more of a collaborative style coaching, just because I think, like I said, I don't want to say I'm an outlier, but I know my training, I know my body. I'm also a coach, so I can kind of provide at least insight to my training. And so we kind of just created essentially a program together. And he's the one that's kind of like, Kristen, you don't need to do like 6 sets of 6 on your squats. Like, chill out. Like, we'll do, you know what I mean? Like, kind of the competitor in me and the coach, or the athlete Kristen and coach Kristen are very, very different. And so he's controlling athlete Kristen and keeping me sane and make sure that I'm not doing any stupid shit, because it's very easy to do that as an athlete who's uh wanting to compete and do well.
I'm happy you have a collaborative coaching right now, because I think that's perfect for you. Where yes, there's always the now calm down, tame yourself. Like you literally don't need 6 by 6, and especially with the mindset, this is my comeback, like the comeback essentially. So like you can
Yeah.
easily be like taken away. It's like wait.
And I'm trying to play catch up, right? Like, I haven't competed in 2 years. um the 500 kilo total was 2021, and that was when I tied with Gabby Martinez and I beat her off body weight. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Gabby, remember that one time I beat you way back when? Yeah.
Yes. She's like, I
So
can't hear you. I'm on my way to Worlds. I can't hear you.
she's like, wait, who are you again? um so like, that's 3 years of training that she's had, where I've been training, but not for powerlifting or to the extent. So it's like I feel like I'm trying to play catch up a little bit. And so athlete Kristen is like, I got to play catch up. I got to do more. The more the better, right? Like, even though I know that's probably not ideal, but that's how we think. And that's how I always know, especially, working with athletes, I know how they're thinking because I am one myself. And I know that you have this mindset of the more the better, or, I'm going to go heavier than my prescribed RPE because I got to win. And
Yeah.
if I hit this PR today, I don't know, for whatever your whatever messed up way that you think is an athlete, right? So having someone hold you accountable, I think, is important. Even myself, and even you have a coach.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even collaborative. It's literally like he does everything, and then if I notice like this list slowing down, I think I know how to fix it, I will tell him and we'll test it. So I love that now, because I used to be at a point, of course, years ago where I was like, just follow the program. But now I can provide so much better insight on how the training is going. Because like I can, like, for
Yeah.
example, So when was it? Basically, when it comes to my bench press, started telling my coach like months ago, like my primary day, I'm like, I don't feel strong on it. It's not factors outside the gym. It's not sleep. It's not food. Like I feel strong on secondary day. Like I can bench a house, but that's not the day it's supposed to be strongest. And then I feel detrained when I get to my primary bench. And because I could tell him I feel detrained versus tired, which is the tired, like, how are we lacking sleep, or did you not have caffeine? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when I can use specific words, can I really know how my body feels? We then increase the intensity, and I was like, we need to increase it on this day and this day. I promise you, like, I think it's gonna take care of it, and it
Yeah.
did. And it's just great. I'm like, oh my god, I know my body so well now. It's such a good feeling. So like,
Yeah,
it's
it
nice.
is. But also, I would kill myself, I think, if I was trying to completely coach myself. So I'm kind of
Same.
glad that I have someone to hold me accountable.
No, same here. Like my deadlift,
Yeah.
when it wasn't going well, I don't know what it would have done to my body, but I would definitely go in the opposite direction. I would start doubting more and more and more and try to kill myself. Like it's just, I
Yeah.
promise you, it wouldn't have gone well.
What's your go-to? Oh, you're not making progress. Let's just add more sets. Let's just add more volume.
Yes.
I don't know. That's
Volume.
what we think we should do. Yeah.
You can barely move at like
Uh,
the next day. You can barely move your legs.
yeah, right. You're like, yeah, okay. So good times, good times. I do have a client who's doing a PT test for like the police academy. And so he has to do a 1.5 mile run. And so we're training for that. And he's got a meet 2 weeks after. So that's been interesting.
That's
Not
exciting.
that yeah. And so these are the things that you always got to think about too, right? When you're like programming for people, like would I normally program a 1.5 mile run when someone's peaking for a powerlifting meet? No. But if they're training for the police academy at the same time, yes.
This priorities, like what's more important? Police Academy, this one meet. Police Academy, this one meet. No, that makes
And
sense.
it depends on who you ask, I guess. If it was us, it'd be like powerlifting.
Okay, no, you wouldn't. You literally would not if you want a
Yeah.
whole job. Like,
I also have no desire to be a police officer, but
oh
if it
yeah.
was a position that required some sort of like uh physical capabilities, I would totally run a mile if I had to. But I probably wouldn't like try to do the Raleigh meet 2 weeks after either. I'd be like, oh, I'm just gonna wait until I do a meet later in the year,
I hear that. I hear that.
you know? So all good.
All right. Good talks. I enjoyed this. I can't wait to see you on the platform. And now y'all have some insight on how we program frequency for our athletes.
And now you can talk about the Raleigh meet and you can talk about me being in there
Yay.
instead of
Yeah,
keeping it a secret. Thanks for keeping it a secret too, by the way.
you're welcome. We definitely, as me and Steve, I'm sure we'll do a previous show. It's gonna be such a good meet. So
Of
I can't
course.
wait for it. So that means I get to get all the
Yay.
you better be DMing me all your PR lifts. Okay. I want all the special insights that no one else gets to see. Okay.
I will. I got you.
Yay. All right.
But
Well,
you can't be like, you can't tell. You'd be like, well, I think her training is going better than what she's posting.
this is what I do. Once I'm about to record, I say, hey, what can I not say? That's what I do. That's
All good.
simple. And you better respond, or else I'll be like, oh, say all of it.
All good. All good.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening, and catch you next time on the Power and Lifting Podcast.
Thanks.